But look at what happens, right? It says, Adonai said to Abram, know this for certain, your descendants will be foreigners in a land that is not theirs. They will be slaves and held in oppression for 400 years. This is a future foretelling of the Passover story. I will also judge the nation, the one that makes them slaves. Afterwards, they will leave with many possessions. As for you, you will join your ancestors in peace and be buried in an old age. Only in the fourth generation will the descendants come back here, because only then will the Emori be ripe for punishment. And that's a fascinating thing. The Amorites were the major people in the promised land at that time. You talk about the Canaanites, okay? The Amorites really were a massive authority. God gives them 400 years to get their act together. He says, if you don't get your act together in 400 years, I'm kicking you out. Which is what Joshua and them had to do. After the sun had set, there was a thick darkness. Now, your translation may vary in this, but a smoking fire pot and a flaming torch appeared. Might say a burning furnace and a torch.
Mine says, behold, a smoking furnace and a torch of fire that passed over between those pieces.
Okay. There's two different pictures of light that go between these animals.
Mm.
Next verse.
And Abram was not there. Yeah. He was there, but he wasn't going. He wasn't walking the walk.
Well, that's the thing. Look at verse 18. It says, that day Adonai made a covenant with Avram. I've given this land to your descendants from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River, and the territory of the Keni, the Kenizi, the Kadmoni, the Hitti, the Perizi, and the Rephaim, the Emori, the Kenani, and the Girgashi, and the Yebusi. So basically he's saying all of these different lights that we see in our Bible, he says that territory is now yours. But like you said, Abraham doesn't seem to walk through the blood.
He is like terror.
Yeah, he's having this moment when you're supposed to be upholding the bargain, and God protects him almost from stepping in, but yet God makes a covenant with Abraham.
And for some reason, we see two lights.
Right. This is
the question
we have to go into, right? So both of these have to do with fire. Okay, and we see God represents himself at the burning bush as fire. The Passover lamb is roasted by fire, thinking of Messiah again. Altars and offerings happen with fire, and fire on the mountaintop and so on. So in many cases, this is something of light, right? So God is in this. Now this is where it gets a little bit more fun. The two words that we're looking at, one is tanur, T-A-N-U-R, which means a portable stove. And it has an interesting little root. The root word talks about on the tip of the earlobe, right here. And you've got to stop and you go, what does an earlobe got to do with stuff? Now, if we study our Bible well, we will realize that Aaron and the high priest and his sons, when they were set apart, they took blood and they put it on their right earlobe, their right thumb, their right big toe. And we've got to stop and we've got to go, why? Well, if you hear and obey what you do and how you walk, in Hebrew, your halakha is how you live out your spiritual truth. There's a simple test. If you believe God is God, right, and you have your understanding of the text, if I study you, I should see your understanding of the text. Yeah. I don't have to ask you the question, I'm going to watch you instead. And you will live out what you believe. So in Hebrew, we will call that your walk, your halakha. So hearing, doing, and living. Okay. So if he says there's a picture here where a light comes in and it has to do with the earlobe of the high priest, and we start to understand later as a foreshadow that Yeshua is our high priest, what is it about Messiah that is pitching up in this moment? Next one. The next light is called a lapid, or a torch. Okay? The word is also used for lightning and pops up in Exodus 20, verse 18. Let's just go there quickly. Yeah, whoever gets there first.
20, verse 18.
That's it.
And all the people saw the thunders and the lightnings and the sound of the ram's horn and the smoking mountain, and the people looked, and they trembled, and they stood from a distance.
Right. So that was a picture of God descending upon that mountain.
Mm.
So what we have is we have two different words here. One seemed to be representing the high priest, but also of light, so Yeshua time. And the other one of God descending on the mountaintop.
Mm.
So we have two parties walking through the blood, and Abraham is sitting on the side. So let's put those pieces together. When God enters into this covenant with Abraham and his descendants thereafter, and he upholds the covenant, when Israel, the descendants of Abraham, break the covenant, ultimately what he's saying is that Yeshua, the other light, will pay the price. When we understand a covenant relationship, and God understanding our shortcomings, that he sends Messiah and he says, when you look at these animals, I want you to understand that Messiah is going to be like that. He was beaten, he was whipped, he was stabbed, there was blood. He was paying the price of a covenant that was broken, just so that it can be atoned for, so we can enter back into that relationship, a covenantal relationship. It's something so personal to God, a covenant-keeping God. And we'll get into, what that looks like in different covenants and so on. But while we're there, let me just give you this one verse. Let's go to Ephesians 2. Let me find this in my scribbles. Ephesians 2 from verse 12. Okay. It says, oh no, let me not read that. I'm in Corinthians.
Ephesians 2:12.
Yeah, okay. I'll read from verse 11. It says, therefore, remember your former state, you Gentiles by birth. All the uncircumcised by those merely because of an operation of the flesh are called the circumcised. At that time had no Messiah. You were estranged from the national life of Israel. You were foreigners of the covenants. Does your translation say covenant or covenants?
Covenants.
Plural, embodying God's promise. You were in this world without hope and without God. So in Ephesians, and Paul writes here that he's telling us, and he's saying, listen, you were separated completely, but because of the blood of Christ, you have been brought back into the covenants of all, those promises that brought forth a Messiah and those future prophetic events that he's going to return. We become part of it because of what he did. And I believe it points back again to what happened in Genesis 15. When you break this, I will pay the price.
Yeah.
So that you can enter into a relationship with me, something that has everlasting consequences, something that is eternal, and something that is about you and me. If we look at the heart condition of our God, the sin part of what we're talking about, when Messiah comes to deal with our sin being that separation barrier, he understands that he needs to get rid of that, but in the midst of that, he's making you righteous. He's setting you apart for himself, that he's allowing you to enter into covenant so that you can have the relationship. He's redeeming you so that he can take you from where he found you and bring you back home. All by his grace, his love for you. When you look at that cross, do we just go, he just dealt with my sin? Or does he go, or do we step back and we go, how great is the love? No.
The fact that at this Abrahamic covenant time when it happened, that Yeshua was already ready thousands of years later to come back and say, I walked the walk, I will pay the price.
Yeah. It's
in my stead. It's awesome.
an
This
amazing
is
truth.
really, really awesome. I do suggest that you listen to this message more than once and make sure that it comes and settles in your heart. Thank you. Thank you. What a blessing.